it's made every match so much more enjoyable to watch because you don't get the stinkers, right?
Right. It goes back to these guys being smart. They figured out that if I've got the hammer in my back pocket and I don't relinquish it, we can just play them straight up and win. They figured that out. And so it's like, all right, now credit to the people at TGL. Like, no, we need to fix this because the hammer can change the match. And since we fixed it, you're not out of it.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than game time decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Off of the combine this weekend, there's been lots of anonymous sources and position coaches and all these things that sat down in interviews with him. A lot of teams allegedly don't see him as a first-round pick.
Their big mouth that thinks they can do it either. They're embarrassing themselves. They all think they're so smart, everybody in this business. You're all a bunch of drips. Honestly, you don't know who's going anywhere.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on Sport.
Good morning. Welcome to the NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Happy Monday. Welcome to March Madness Conference Tournament Edition beginning this week. Lots of teams already qualifying for the big dance. We'll tell you who is in and who may be in by the end of the week. Also, we'll get into the latest in Major League Baseball. Some very significant injuries that we have to get to that could affect some team totals at the end of the season. And who would think that today would be the big day for the National Football League to basically take our show over? Last 24 hours, we have seen some massive movement in the National Football League with trades and signings. Some very big names and Pro Bowlers are switching teams. So we'll get to that as well as bring in our SportsGrid insider, Adam Caplan, to get the very latest on that as well. So that's probably a good place to start today, even though not a lot of effect on this until we get through the NFL draft coming up really next month. But the big name that is moved, he requested a trade and ended up getting it kind of quick, a little surprising maybe. DK Metcalf of the Seattle Seahawks is no longer. He's headed and is going to probably have to figure out a new number or talk to George Pickens because he's going to be on the Pittsburgh Steelers next season. So they have now Pickens and Metcalf. They don't have a quarterback, but they definitely do have two standout wide receivers. And so Metcalf now a member of the Steelers. There is some discussion that maybe Aaron Rodgers could be headed to Pittsburgh, although, again, these are just rumors at this point. We don't know. But today, officially, the tampering window that is allowed opens up. That's why we're getting a lot of this NFL stuff. So let's get to some more. If you missed it over the weekend on Saturday, we found out that Geno Smith is not going to be throwing to DK Metcalf in Seattle, and he's not going to be throwing in Seattle at all. In fact, he's going to be going to the Raiders, and they get back a third-round pick. So that reunites him with his former head coach, Pete Carroll. That takes care of their quarterback situation in Las Vegas, at least for the time being. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Rams don't need a quarterback and may not have needed a wide receiver, but they ended up signing Davante Adams anyway. 2 years, $46 million for Adams, who, of course, will probably take the spot of Cooper Kupp. Kupp has not been traded. He has not been released. But Puka Nacua and Davante Adams are the number one and number two weapons for Matthew Stafford going into the season. Myles Garrett ended up rescinding his trade request. Remember when that was one of our top stories at the beginning of the show? Well, he got paid $40 million a year, $123.5 million in guaranteed money. He is the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And also Aaron Jones is staying with the Vikings. He signs a 2-year deal, $20 million. And J.C. Horn signs a 4-year, $100 million deal, and $70 million of that was guaranteed. Setting the bar for all quarterbacks in the National Football League is going to none other than Josh Allen. He's got a new 6-year, $330 million contract, $250 million guaranteed. That's the most ever in the history of the NFL. Greg Rousseau, 4 for $80, stays with Buffalo. Ronnie Stanley staying in Baltimore. He gets a 3-year deal worth $60 million, and it looks like Nick Bolton's going to stay in Kansas City. He gets a 3-year contract worth $45 million, and we're just getting started with the offseason in the National Football League. I would guess by the time that we're back here tomorrow, we're going to see more trades and more signings as well. All right, bad news for the Los Angeles Lakers playing their best basketball of the season. LeBron James injured his groin. No timetable yet on his return. They're saying it could be a couple of weeks. LeBron says it could be less than that. Who knows? Celtics went up by 20. It was a blowout in the game, but needless to say, Luka's going to be flying solo, it looks like, as the superstar in LA until LeBron gets back. Naturally, the playoffs are coming soon. Cavaliers keep on winning 14 games in a row as they beat the Bucks 112 to 100. They had 8 different players score 9+ points, and the Cavaliers, folks, are on pace to win at least 60 games. They're 54-10 on the season. What an incredible year for them. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, just hand this guy the MVP already. 40 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. They end up beating the Nuggets 127 to 103. Jokic at 24 and 13. Needless to say, right now, to bet SGA is minus 600 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. SGA after the game, talking about the fan support they've received all season long. It's just simply almost impossible to beat the Thunder in Oklahoma City.
I think the crowds, our help defense, our just intensity, our hands, deflections, like we were more engaged and more aggressive with the game plan. I think at first we were a little bit passive with the game plan, still trying to execute it, but a little bit passive. And once we attacked it and tried to get those things into the game, we started getting stops.
Yeah, I just got to continue to keep being aggressive, taking what the defense gives me, without kind of forcing things and messing up kind of the flow and the rhythm that we have out there. Tonight, I had a couple opportunities to make that play, and I made it. And, I just got to continue to be aggressive. And when the defense gives me an opportunity to do that, I got to take it. So got to keep doing that more.
Just, that mental toughness we talk about. Obviously coming in here on a tough back-to-back where guys played heavy minutes the night before, trying to hold off a team that got guys, individually that can just get hot and get going. And we knew we were going to need to get stops. But I thought we did a good job where, everybody involved helped us make a play late, whether it was a defensive play, an offensive play. Everybody contributed.
It's made every match so much more enjoyable to watch because you don't get the stinkers, right?
Right. It goes back to these guys being smart. They figured out that if I've got the hammer in my back pocket and I don't relinquish it, we can just play them straight up and win. They figured that out. So it's like, all right, now credit to the people at TGL. Like, no, we need to fix this because the hammer can change the match. And since we fixed it, you're not out of it.
The Smiley Show.
All right, welcome back. Let's get to some college basketball news and notes. The NCAA tournament coming up next Thursday, officially. The play-in games will start early next week. Some teams have qualified for the NCAA tournament. Let's go through them. Drake, High Point, Lipscomb, SIU Edwardsville, and Omaha have tournament tickets. It's the first time ever High Point qualifies for the NCAA. They ended up winning the Big South. Also, Michigan State beats number 17 Michigan 79-62. As they win the Big Ten title by 3 games. Alabama floated a buzzer beater past top-ranked Auburn, 93-91. We'll see who the number 1 team in the country is later today. And also Cooper Flagg helped Duke pull away from UNC in a big rivalry game. The final score was 82-69. Of course, there's plenty going on in the world of the National Football League and also some golf as well. Russell Henley ends up winning the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill. Pre-tournament, he was plus 5,000. He ends up coming back to take his 5th tour title. He talked about watching the tournament as a kid, and then coming back to actually win it is a special feeling.
Yeah, I've grown up watching this event and just seen all the amazing finishes coming down the stretch. And I never really, you never really think you're going to get that opportunity to come down the 18th and make a par to win. And it's really just hard to take in right now. It's a tremendous honor, and that's what's so cool about this game is to go play where all the legends have played.
And certainly the Florida Tour has seen some very random winners thus far as they through the state of Florida. We'll see if that carries over to Augusta coming up next month. Let's do this. We'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire. When we come back next, Vinnie Iyer will join us, courtesy of Sporting News. Plenty of NFL to get to as the Pittsburgh Steelers seem to be making some early noise as the tampering window opens in NFL free agency. You're watching NewsWire here on SportsGrid, and we'll be back right after these messages. So stay with us here on the grid.
Which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room, like you giving like the Any Given Sunday Inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like I just don't get how he is still employed. We gotta talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Possible that while every other state is trying to copy New York and get that 51% tax on sports betting, is it possible that New York will actually lower their taxes? That's surprising.
The question is, of course, what sports books could go there. I mean, we're already at 9 that are the biggest ones out there in the market. So, I mean, who are you really missing?
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember when everyone was upset about NIL? You know what NIL did? Make sure Cooper Flagg wasn't playing with the G League Ignite. That's good for us. That's good for college basketball. When the best players are actually playing college basketball.
You're going to get battle tested. And it doesn't matter, Kevin, if you're at home or on the road. If you don't come ready to play in the SEC, you're going home with an L.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all. Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What?
How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Well, lo and behold, we got Vinnie Iyer back from Sporting News. There's plenty of NFL to talk about here on the show. Didn't think that's where we were going to be, but, certainly that's where we are. Vinnie joins us now here. And Vinnie, I guess it seems to me that the team percolating with the most news at this point, meaning transaction news, I think that's fair. A lot of teams are keeping their own players ahead of free agency, but the Pittsburgh Steelers definitely seem, at least from a management point of view, to be very upset with the way that things finished last year, because you're hearing rumors of Aaron Rodgers maybe being the quarterback there. Again, that's just a rumor at this point, but factually speaking, they now have DK Metcalf to go along with George Pickens. That is a huge, huge add. And also, Vinny, I would add, without a quarterback, right? like adding the pieces
Yeah.
without having a quarterback. This is like, I generally speaking, backwards way to do it, right? Don't see this that often.
Yeah, I think we're trying to get an indication of what they're trying to do at quarterback by these moves. And you look at DK Metcalf, George Pickens, their skill sets are very similar. They're big dudes who can stretch the field. And you think they want to go to a vertical passing game, which would suggest that they do not want to bring back Justin Fields, or things fell through, so they had to pivot from that. Because Fields, that was the biggest knock, right? He couldn't push the ball downfield. Russell Wilson came, did a little bit better, but didn't sustain it. So now what kind of quarterback do you fit in there? I mean, that's why the rumors have gone to Sam Darnold. That's why they've gone to Aaron Rodgers. Just a big arm that can get the ball downfield. I would think if they're thinking fallback, Kirk Cousins might be there as well. So that's the type of quarterback they're looking for to get a more dangerous passing game, unlock Pickens, which they hope just having Metcalf to draw coverage attention will do in itself. So that's the thing, is like the Steelers are typically not this aggressive, but I think they're just tired of this 10-7 limbo because they don't have enough of a passing game or real quarterback. So I'm interested to see what else they get done here as soon as the tampering window opens.
Yeah, and look, the weapons now with Metcalf, I mean, these are good. And people think, oh, the Steelers, they're not a throwing team. They don't have that vertical offense.
Right.
People, Ben Roethlisberger, Juju Smith-Schuster, Antonio Brown, Santonio Holmes. Like, I mean, they had that offense for a long time.
Yeah.
They just haven't had it recently. And, the weapons are there with Pat Fryermuth and company. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is a possibility here. I mean, the thing is, though, for me, Vinny, like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess it's like another placeholder here. They just keep rotating and shuffling out these quarterbacks with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph, and then this year with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And even if Aaron Rodgers is there, it's only going to be a one-year fix. So I guess we'll see how this all plays out. But I don't know. I mean, can Aaron Rodgers be that guy he was like 4 years ago? I don't know.
Well, I think what they're looking at is they're a good enough team maybe to win if they make the right moves. And they're trying to clean house here. It's not just quarterback and wide receiver, but running back, they'll probably move on from Najee Harris. They could make some offensive line upgrades. So you could totally blow up what we know of the Steelers offense. And it's a copycat league, right? Everyone wants to follow what the Eagles have done. Have two great receivers, a quarterback that can push the ball downfield, maybe give you a running element as well. We'll see. I don't think you'll get that from Rodgers or Cousins or Darnold, but maybe you just want to get that downfield vertical ability to have two top receivers, get the pass rush going. That's the one thing we know they can do with TJ Watt and all the guys they have on the other side of the ball. So when I look at it, like, it's a copycat league. Everyone wants to do what the Eagles just did, and having two big-time receivers seems to be a big part of what these teams can do. And that's why you'll see the Bengals with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Everyone's going to follow this two wide receiver blueprint going forward.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so Pete Carroll, he goes to the Raiders, and he basically planted his flag here, right? Everyone thought Russell Wilson was going to be the guy. Didn't follow the end of his career in Seattle.
Yeah.
Clearly, Pete Carroll did not want him. He got Geno Smith. I mean, I guess this is a 1 or 2 year sort of placeholder here. Again, if the Raiders draft a quarterback, it wouldn't surprise me, but he's got to be better than what they had last year.
Yeah, the one thing that we think about with Geno Smith is he's essentially a Chip Kelly quarterback. He's been that way all the way back to West Virginia. They run different type of concepts there, but it's still some of the things that cross over with the spread offense. And when you think about that, that's the kind of quarterback that does well in the Chip Kelly system. So I think when everyone is trying to tie Matthew Stafford or Sam Darnold, you got to have a little bit of mobility in this offense, get the ball out quickly. Geno obviously has a history in this style of offense, and he has a history with Pete Carroll. So I predicted this, and I thought this could be the best fit. I didn't know if the Seahawks were going to get enough from the Raiders to make this move, and if they would be gutsy enough, but they're pretty gutsy right now, moving away from Geno Smith, blowing up their offense, going to Clint Kubiak, bye-bye Tyler Lockett, trading DK Metcalf. Jackson Smith-Njigba is the guy there, so they need to get help. So these two offenses, the Seahawks and Steelers, basically are blowing up their passing games and seeing what we can get and push for a higher ceiling, because I think these teams, again, realize they're not going to win in their current state. They're just going to be average 10-win team at best with the Seahawks and Steelers, and that's not enough to win anything big.
Meanwhile, the Rams upgraded wide receiver Devontae Adams is headed there on a 2-year contract. He played really well down the stretch with the Jets. I think he still has a lot of football left, Vinny, without a doubt. But poor Cooper Kupp, right? Like, I mean, he had to know the writing was on the wall when he said trade. I mean, Vinny, it seems like no one wants Cooper Kupp. He may end up getting released.
Yeah, he's just a guy that's on the other side of 30. He's had a long injury history, so he's got a bit of wear and tear on him as well. So, and you haven't seen recently him staying on the field and being productive the way that Adams or Metcalf or any of these guys have been. So we'll see. I think, release seems like the most likely option unless they settle for a 6th or 7th round pick maybe, and that would not be the ideal scenario for the Rams, but they might just have to take it.
All right, and finally, Aaron Jones stays with the Vikings. So once they get their quarterback situation sorted out, they got the running back there too, and they obviously have the great receiver. I assume McCarthy will be the guy there.
Yeah, they're keeping McCarthy, but the question is Daniel Jones good enough to be the backup that they're looking for? Will they keep Darnold if his bargain comes down? Will they go after Aaron Rodgers? So yet another team with the Rodgers rumors. We'll see. I think we're just trying to fit Rodgers somewhere, and there might not be a good fit in the end for him when we look at this and it's all said and done.
Yep, it definitely will not be a good fit, but we'll try to make it fit because it's Aaron Rodgers. That's what he does. All right, Vinny, thanks for coming on. Enjoy the roulette wheel of this NFL free agency today. Thanks again.
All right, thanks, Craig.
All right, speaking of which, Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider, is going to double down on some of the topics that we're discussing and see what's coming up ahead next. You're watching NewsWire here on SportsGrid every single day, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern, talking, surprisingly, NFL during March Madness. We'll have more next.
Which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like, I just don't get how he is still employed. We gotta talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Possible that while every other state is trying to copy New York and get that 51% tax on sports betting, is it possible that New York will actually lower their taxes? That's surprising.
The question is, of course, what sports books could go there. I mean, we're already at 9 that are the biggest ones out there in the market. So, I mean, who are you really missing?
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember when everyone was upset about NIL? You know what NIL did? Make sure Cooper Flag wasn't playing with the G League Ignite. That's good for us. That's good for college basketball. When the best players are actually playing college basketball.
You're going to get battle tested. And it doesn't matter, Kevin, if you're at home or on the road. If you don't come ready to play in the SEC, you're going home with an L.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all. Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We got to jump in with Adam Caplan here on the show today because, as always, the NFL steals the headlines during what I call transaction season, which started today, really started over the weekend as well. We've gone, Adam, from the legal tampering period where on tampering day we found out a lot. Now we're even doing it 24 hours before tampering day. So NFL loves it. This is what's going on. And thus far, a lot of teams stealing the headlines. The Steelers for sure, without a doubt. And then, of course, you know, really the big story of the weekend, too, was the shocker to see Geno Smith traded to the Raiders, which I don't know. I mean, you saw coming, but I did not see that coming.
Well, here's the thing: when the Seahawks really, Craig, wanted to extend Geno Smith's contract, they could not get together. They couldn't get together on an agreement. And I give the Raiders credit for making this deal. It'll be official on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. And Geno Smith, of course, reunited with his former head coach Pete Carroll. But there's an interesting side story to this. So this is going back 12 years, and Chip Kelly, the $6 million a year offense coordinator for the Raiders. Chip, when he was the Eagles head coach, really wanted Geno Smith to be his quarterback. In fact, it was going to be until the Eagles front office and the ownership and coaching staff met with Geno before his pro day at West Virginia, and it just didn't go well. The meeting didn't go great, and they moved off of him. But Chip, and I thought Vinnie Iyer made a good point, Chip really likes mobile quarterbacks. This is why I was told back then, 12 years ago, that he wanted Geno to be his quarterback. So, look, Geno can move. He's not a runner per se. But no question, Geno's matured. There were some maturity issues with Geno as a young player, but he's really good. He's solid. You could win with him. Now, they need a lot of help, the Raiders do. It's not just quarterback, which they've now solidified for the short-term future, but they need help on defense. Yes, Max Crosby got his mammoth deal, but he was still under contract anyway. They need help in the secondary. They need help with pass rushers to help Crosby out. They have a lot of work to do, the Raiders do, but now they have a quarterback.
Is Seattle going to trade up or something here in the draft? What's their plan?
Well, we're expecting Sam Darnold to make a push at Darnold. They're going to run it. They're changing their offense. Ryan Grubb, their former offense coordinator who was let go, he ran a heavy passing offense. Mike McDonald, their head coach, wanted a running offense, so that's why they brought in Clint Kubiak, son of Gary, who's a run game guy. More 12 personnel, more 2 tight ends, and they need a quarterback who knows the system. Sam Darnold, who we knew was not very good with the Jets, didn't do much with the Panthers, was tremendous last season until the final 2 games of the Vikings. And they're going to run a West Coast offense. This is a good fit for him. The same scheme that they ran in Minnesota, they're going to run in Seattle this season, and that's why the Seahawks are on him. We'll see what happens.
You don't think that's a lock, or what percentage would you put on that?
I know the Vikings. The Vikings have tried, Craig. They've tried, but they're another team. They just don't want to make a long-term commitment based on the way that the season ended for Sam there with them. But Seattle is look. If Seattle doesn't get Sam Darnold, they're going to have to look toward the draft. And by the way, I want to pick up on something you said earlier. You set this up very well. We're seeing a record number of deals get done with clubs keeping their players this early before the tampering period today. Why? It is the most mediocre group of free agents that I've seen in probably over a decade. It's just not very good. It's really the mid-level free agents, Craig. That's why you're seeing a lot of teams keeping their own players who are pretty good football players. And guys are getting paid a little bit more from the market than you probably thought they would, but it's because they're keeping their own players. Now, we're seeing some players being released. We're seeing a lot of defensive tackles released. Guys in their late 20s, early 30s who will find new jobs. But, the bottom line is, Craig, you're right. There's been a flurry of activity with clubs keeping their players, but we've also seen some trades. That DK Metcalf trade is fascinating with the Steelers.
Yeah, you generally speaking, Adam. I mean, I guess probably I'm just living in the moment here and don't remember. But I find it hard to believe that a team like Pittsburgh doesn't know who their quarterback's going to be, just building everything around someone that's not there. I'm guessing they just know and we don't know.
Well, I would say this: they're looking for right now a temporary solution. Whether it's Justin Fields, I know there's buzz around Aaron Rodgers or some other quarterbacks. In my reporting here, and I know we've actually been quoted from SportsGrid, I've said for a couple of months now, I'd be very surprised if Russell Wilson, I know he's still in the mix for them, would wind up coming back. It's just because he almost got benched. In fact, I know there are coaches on their staff that wanted to bench Wilson. They were told it's not going to happen. And they went with Russell to finish the season. It didn't end well, but they haven't not eliminated from their list. Yes, eventually, Craig, they want to find their long-term solution at quarterback. To me, Justin Fields makes the most sense, just from an upside standpoint. And they made a mistake by not playing him to finish last season. They really need to take a look at him, and they never got a chance to do it.
I love the Adams move to the Rams. That's a fantastic move to me.
Yeah, and Cooper Kupp's going to be out. Yeah, they're trying to trade him, but it's going to be difficult. Way too much money, and he's an older player.
Yeah, it would be nice. All right, Adam, maybe we'll check back with you again this week. We'll see how things go. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire. When we come back, Pat Evans joins us from Legal Sports Report. Don't go away.
which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like, I just don't get how he is still employed. We got to talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Possible that while every other state is trying to copy New York and get that 51% tax on sports betting, is it possible that New York will actually lower their taxes? That's surprising.
Question is, of course, well, what sports books could go there? I mean, we're already at 9 that are the biggest ones out there in the market. So, I mean, who are you really missing?
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember when everyone was upset about NIL? You know what NIL did? Make sure Cooper Flag wasn't playing with the G League Ignite. That's good for us. That's good for college basketball, when the best players are actually playing college basketball.
You're going to get battle tested. And it doesn't matter, Kevin, if you're on the home, at home or on the road. If you don't come ready to play in the SEC, you're going home with an L.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Pat Evans is all geared up for the conference tournaments and the NCAA tournament, where his Michigan State Spartans look as dangerous as any team in the country. This is true, folks. I mean, they look fantastic. So Pat somehow has to get work done for Legal Sports Report in the interim. Pat, I don't know how you're going to do it. You just got to pump out some articles real quick. But starting tomorrow, I don't expect to get much work out of you.
Well, I think it'll be all right. I mean, Michigan State doesn't play till Friday because they got that nice double bye because they got the outright Big Ten regular season title, So I'm just going to, kind of roll around in that for the week and then get excited for Friday. So I'll keep my work going.
All right, keep it going until Friday. Fair enough. All right, let's start off in the sports betting world. We start off with the state of Georgia. We've heard some back and forth. There really wasn't a ton of optimism, so I'm guessing we're not going to see legalized sports betting in Georgia this year, and next year probably question mark as well.
Yeah, I Georgia was again one of those states that there were high hopes for because now we're up in the top levels of trees because all the low hanging fruit is gone for the states legalizing, and of course, Georgia, Minnesota, I think were the two and have been the two the last 2 years that people kind of look at and say, okay, this is something we can get done. There's decent proposals laid out. Enough people on, both sides of the aisle saying, let's get this done. And then it just didn't get done. The crossover deadline has passed with bills not passing over between chambers. It started in the Senate with a Senate proposal that kind of fell apart. That included sports betting and casinos. The Senate committee that it was in kind of voted against it, kind of gave the nod to the House to say, hey, we know you guys care more about kind of what's in this. You go ahead and try to figure it out. Marcus Widerower took a long time to get his bill introduced. It introduced it 2 weeks ago, just ahead of the crossover deadline, which was last week. And it did make it through a committee and then didn't get called up on that crossover deadline. And so it's effectively dead. There's a chance, a couple of years ago, I don't know if you remember this, Craig, a bill was kind of hijacked, a bill to naming a state official derby race and put in sports betting language after the crossover deadline. And then it kind of didn't move because of how controversial that move was. So something like that could happen, but I highly doubt it. Georgia's probably going to be on the back burner for the year. It was a constitutional amendment, so it would have gone to voters next November. So the timeline doesn't really change if they do go ahead and take it up again next year. It would still be on the ballot in 2026 if they pass it, so it wouldn't start until 2027. So really, the timeline doesn't change, but it is still a disappointment for the industry and hopeful sports bettors in Georgia.
Yeah, the South, tough to get things through. That's what we've learned over the last couple of years as well. Okay, so the state of Nevada stepping up here. And basically, Pat, and I read the story, Legal Sports Report. We also followed the story last year. The state of Nevada has come out and basically said, hey, look, if you're going to let everybody open up sports betting markets, including prediction markets, and we can't guarantee to have this responsible gaming and things of that nature, that's sort of what they're saying here. And I guess I would ask you the question, Pat. They're really aiming at this company called Kalshi, which has been around for a long period of time. You want to predict who's going to win the Golden Globe, you want to know who's going to win the president, you can wager or whatever, predict on those sort of things, opening weekend at the box office, some very non-outcome when it comes to sports prediction-based analysis here. And it seems to me that they just don't want them operating at all because, again, these are not things that were common in the United States in the past. What do you think that the real reason behind Nevada doing this is?
Yeah, so Kalshi really, I think, started getting a lot of buzz in with the November election and started with election betting, but then come the Super Bowl, it started opening up to sports markets, and we're seeing more. And you've even got other operators like Robinhood, the commercial trading, day trading, consumer app. They're looking at doing it. Crypto.com's thought about doing it or is doing it.
Right.
It's interesting because it is regulated at a federal level now with the CFTC saying it's okay. There's some nuances there that you can dive into, and they're going to start looking at it with some roundtables here soon. But the Nevada gaming regulators say, no, you can't do it in our state, which brings an interesting question of kind of what happens now if it's regulated at a federal level for nationwide in every state to the Nevada regulators saying, get out, you can't do it here. There could be some interesting battles there coming up. But really it comes down to, I think Nevada regulators, gaming is Nevada's thing. They love it. They have regulated it long time. They're always ahead of kind of keeping people, offshore operators out of there. Bovada was it was the first state Bovada was, restricted users. And now that number's up to 17 states or something like that. But basically, yeah, they want to regulate the gaming that goes on in Nevada. That's what Nevada is known for. That's what they need to keep on lockdown. And so they do. We'll see what happens if Kalshi pulls out or if there's a lawsuit or what happens. We'll see. But yeah, basically it was like, if you're not regulated to do it and our sports books aren't allowed to offer what you're offering, this is not okay. And that's where we're at. And we'll see what happens. It will be interesting to see if other states kind of follow suit. A state like Michigan here, which we talk about a lot recently, and sending cease and desist to offshore operators. They've sent something like 20. It wouldn't kind of surprise me to see them follow suit and say, hey, if Nevada's, the leading gaming regulator of in a lot of ways says, no, you can't do it, well, we're going to follow suit and do that as well. So we'll see what happens if there's any action from Kalshi to say, hey, no, we're going to stay here, or challenges legally or what, or if more states follow suit. And I don't know, it's just kind of an interesting new development in these kind of, it is federally regulated, but gray market, operators that we're seeing pop up that are finding loopholes, like the DFS 2.0 saga we saw 2 years ago and still
Right.
kind of see, or the sweepstakes things we've been talking about more and more recently. So yeah, Nevada just saying, hey, let's keep it regulated by us. And if you're not, you can't operate here.
Now, while sports betting has taken some big leaps over the last few years, we've seen a lot of pullback on casino betting online. It seems like some states are in favor of it, but actually it feels like it's 50-50. Some want it, some don't. We have a new state here that says we'll pass on casino gambling. Who is it?
Yeah, New Hampshire was kind of one of those states that you thought might be able to slip in. To your point, there was an avalanche of states legalizing sports betting after PASA. And now that we've seen a lot of states legalize that, and you're down to the few states that don't want to, that we talked about, like Georgia. Now we're turning the attention, and the industry is turning the attention to online casino. The big operators want this. It's a huge revenue opportunity, and states are kind of seeing it as revenue opportunities as well. But then there is the balance of problem gambling and responsible gambling and the like. And New Hampshire was one of those states that kind of looked like it could be a good chance to get a state to legalize this. There's only 6 or 7. I can never remember. But they are tabling it. The sponsor said, nope, let's not do it this year. And so we've seen quite a few states introduce it, quite a few states talk about it a little bit, but then a lot of lawmakers kind of pumping the brakes saying, nope, this is something that we definitely need to take a deeper look at, a closer look, and see if it's okay for our constituents, whether or not it's okay to move forward. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if any state kind of moves it any more than it has.
Yeah.
I'm hearing some things out of Arkansas. Might be a state that kind of sneaks in with it this year. So I'll keep you updated on that. But yeah, New Hampshire is a no-go for online casino this year.
All right, fair enough. Pat, will I see you later in the week? Are you back on or no?
I think Wednesday, and then we can talk more about the Spartans, because
All right,
all
we'll
I want to
preview
talk about
Michigan's
nowadays.
Yeah, we won't know Michigan State's first game until Thursday, I
No.
don't think. But either way, we'll talk some basketball. Pat, enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for coming on.
You too.
All right, coming up next, Coach Young will be with us. How does the LeBron James injury affect the Lakers' next few games? We'll get into that. We'll also, a little bit later in the show, tell you what Jason Kidd had to say about his depleted roster in their game last night. It may not be pretty. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday Inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like, I just don't get how he is still employed. We got to talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Possible that while every other state is trying to copy New York and get that 51% tax on sports betting, is it possible that New York will actually lower their taxes? That's surprising.
The question is, of course, what sports books could go there. I mean, we're already at 9 that are the biggest ones out there in the market. So, I mean, who are you really missing?
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember when everyone was upset about NIL? You know what NIL did? Make sure Cooper Flag wasn't playing with the G League Ignite. That's good for us. That's good for college basketball, when the best players are actually playing college basketball.
You're going to get battle tested. And it doesn't matter, Kevin, if you're at home or on the road. If you don't come ready to play in the SEC, you're going home with an L.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all. Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Got Coach Young in the house talking some NBA. He'll pivot over to college basketball and NBA over the next couple of weeks. Going to be really busy around here at SportsGrid. So, Coach, get your coffee out. I don't know. Do you have energy drinks? I don't know. What do you usually do to get through the next few weeks?
Probably a cup of coffee, probably by 6:30, and probably on my second cup by about 9. So, yeah, a lot of coffee drinking for the coach and lack of sleep for, let's say, the next 4 or so weeks.
Yeah, I can't wait to get the madness started this week, next week as well. Madness is what you could say about the Los Angeles Lakers. They've been one of the best teams in the NBA since the trade of Luka, and then unfortunately, LeBron James is 40, so naturally these little nagging injuries are going to pop up. The latest one is a groin injury in the 111-101 loss that he suffered. So Boston rolls on. The Lakers do not, as Boston picks up the win between these two iconic franchises. And the reports are, Coach, that LeBron could miss 1 to 2 weeks, but of course they're going to have their eyes now firmly on making sure that King James is ready for the playoffs, right? Like they're not going to care about anything else at this point. And by the way, their schedule coming up, like there are some tough teams on there, but I think without him, they could probably be a 500 team for what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, Lakers have the fourth toughest schedule the rest of the way in the NBA. So, listen, when you got someone that's 40 years old, Craig, you have to really take your time with your injury, especially with a groin. Something that's nagging like that can easily become a lot worse if you come back too soon. So I expect J.J. Redick to kind of take their time bringing him back. Obviously, LeBron was really good, 22, 14, and 9 versus the Celtics on Saturday night. But let's be honest, they stepped up in class. They stepped up in class in a major way in that loss. So now we'll see what happens. They got Brooklyn tonight. They should be able to win that game. And then they got Milwaukee at Denver versus Phoenix. So, in the next, week and a half. So, Craig, it could spiral quickly. Luckily, the way they've been playing, they kind of built themselves a little bit of a cushion, sitting, obviously, I do believe, second in the Western Conference going into tonight.
All right. So we'll see what happens, as Coach mentioned. They're 6.5-point dogs tonight, and then it's Milwaukee, Denver, Phoenix, San Antonio, which should be a winnable game at home. They'll probably be favored in that one, even without LeBron. Then Denver again, and then Milwaukee to close it out if he ends up missing that much time. Meanwhile, the Cleveland Cavaliers just keep on rolling as they pick up win number 54 on the season. I don't know, Coach, how many teams had Cleveland winning 60 this year, but that's happening. They beat the Bucks 112-100. They basically can beat you in so many different ways. And, I just wonder if we've been sleeping on them not being the favorites all season long to come out of the East. I'm not going to be surprised anymore at this point if Cleveland wins the East.
No, you can't be surprised by it. And Craig, I think the best thing that you mentioned just now is the fact that they could beat you in different ways. On this 14-game winning streak, I do believe that they've had 5 different guys lead their team in scoring, right? Whether it's Donovan Mitchell or Evan Mobley or Ty Jerome. DeAndre Hunter gave you a 32-point performance not too long ago, and then obviously Max Strus with 17 points. And I think that's what makes this team so dangerous, Craig, is their ability to just beat you in many different ways, right? You want to run it up? Cool. You want to walk it up? Cool. You want high scoring? You want low scoring? You want us to be with Donovan Mitchell? You want us to beat you with your bench? That is what's really great at what Kenny Atkinson done. Listen, no one had them doing this. Did I think they were going to go over their win total? Yes. They're going to smash it. I mean, in fact, I think they already smashed it already, to be honest with you. Yeah. My biggest thing is going to be, Craig, playoffs. What do they do in the playoffs? Right now, that matchup right now has them Milwaukee, Indiana 4-5, and the winner of that. But I think the Knicks are going to slide to 4. Their schedule's tough. Brunson's out 2 weeks. And if you're Tibbs, your better path to the Eastern Conference Finals still goes through Cleveland than Boston.
Fair enough. All right, so the Denver Nuggets and Oklahoma City Thunder are playing each other 2 nights in a row. Last night, it was an easy win for OKC, 127-103. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 40 points, which is something we've said far too often this season. He's the overwhelming favorite to win the MVP. So now let's pivot to, Coach, in your opinion, what happens when 2 juggernauts like this face off against each other tonight, where now Oklahoma City is 8.5-point favorites tonight over Denver, total of 238.5. Look, you follow this a lot closer than me, but to me, a team with Nikola Jokic, should they be 8.5-point underdogs in any game?
When they're playing Oklahoma City Thunder, they should be. And I think that's the thing we have to look at. When you really dial back and look at this matchup, 24-point win. It was a close game until OKC basically blew them out in the fourth quarter. Denver hasn't covered their last 4 games. Oklahoma City 5-1 against the spread. Both teams on a back-to-back. You go with the team that's deeper, the team that's better. and the team that's younger. All three of those line up to OKC. And speaking of SGA, right, 40-point performance, absolutely fantastic. But he also shot 2 of 11 from 3. Craig, if he would have shot anywhere near 50%, he would have dropped 50 last night. That tells you how great SGA is. And when you go to the other side, Nikola Jokic has been fantastic. I think the MVP race, unfortunately, is wrapped up. But when you're the guy that leads you in scoring along with him, Michael Porter Jr. gives you 24 and 15, and you're a minus 33, that tells you Oklahoma City is just way too deep and way too young, Craig. When they want to turn it on, they turn it on. It's amazing to look at right now in the NBA and look at two teams right now, both Cleveland and OKC, that are literally running away with their conference. OKC, 7th-game winning streak. They'll probably make it 8 tonight versus Denver.
You know, Coach, we're not going to do college basketball until next week with you here on the show. But man, it was so. I love this time of year because it's obviously the games are a lot of fun and they're exciting. But to see the story like of High Point getting into the NCAA tournament and getting a lot of headlines because again they sneak some teams in before the big conferences begin this week. I just love those sort of stories.
Yeah, it's the real story of college basketball because it's true one and done. You look at High Point team; they got 44 points, Craig, from their bench in the second half alone as they were down 15 with 15 left to go. You look at a team like Omaha getting their first time in the tournament in 2011, and Lipscomb getting a fifth-year guy last year, COVID, 28, 25, 23. What a performance. This is March Madness.
Definitely so. We'll catch Coach all week long and next week too for our NCAA tournament coverage. We'll see you then, Coach. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Craig.
All right. We'll be right back with some last licks. Don't go away.
Which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday Inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like I just don't get how he is still employed. We got to talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Possible that while every other state is trying to copy New York and get that 51% tax on sports betting, is it possible that New York will actually lower their taxes? That's surprising.
The question is, of course, what sports books could go there. I mean, we're already at 9 that are the biggest ones out there in the market. So, I mean, who are you really missing?
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember when everyone was upset about NIL? You know what NIL did? Make sure Cooper Flag wasn't playing with the G League Ignite. That's good for us. That's good for college basketball. When the best players are actually playing college basketball.
You're going to get battle tested. And it doesn't matter, Kevin, if you're at home or on the road. If you don't come ready to play in the SEC, you're going home with an L.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We're going to get to the most popular selfie of the weekend on social media. Also talk some Dallas Mavericks basketball. Can't get enough of that. And a whole lot more. Time now as we end the show here this Monday with some last licks. Never understand how this keeps happening and never understand how in college basketball and college football, the players and staffers just don't understand at this point that if you're part of a team, you can't bet on sports. Mississippi State is the latest team that is under investigation, the women's team, because one of their staffers allegedly was placing a handful of bets on sports while they were there at Mississippi State University. Now, again, there's still nothing confirmed here at this point. And also keep in mind, we've had a lot of stories that have gone sideways this year, some on the positive and some on the negative. But the moral of the story that I just wanted to start off with here today is that if you are going to a university, or you're on staff at a university, or even on the practice squad at a university, you can't bet on sports. You can't place wagers. It's part of the deal. You have to be careful, understanding that even if it's your account or somebody else's account, it's better to just not place the bets. Now, I know that this is responsible gambling month and gaming month, and we try to bring you some of these stories as well to educate, no doubt. But Mississippi State is now the latest school, although it doesn't seem to be a major impropriety because, again, it's just involving the practice squad. Meanwhile, what is going on in Dallas? My goodness, Jason Kidd has got his hands full here. The Mavericks have several players out. I don't know if you caught this on social media on Sunday, but the Mavericks were warming up 7 or 8 players before their game. And that's all they had available during the game. So naturally, the Mavericks, of course, are up against it. Gafford has been hurt. We know Anthony Davis in that trade has been hurt. Luka's no longer there. Jason Kidd has probably got to put together his best coaching job ever in his history coaching in the NBA. So much so that during the post game, here is Jason Kidd talking about playing and coaching in the NBA, and for the first time ever, not remembering that he couldn't take a player out of the game because he didn't have enough players to replace him with.
No, never seen this. Never been in a game that we could not take someone out to rest them because we had no one to put in. That's just, the end of the bench. Normally you can put someone in. If not in clothes, they were in the back getting stitches or could not move or walk. So it's tough. It's tough. It is what it is, though. I mean, we got to keep pushing forward.
All right. So having covered sports for a long time, there is absolutely no question that Jason Kidd's upset. Okay, he didn't have to say that after the game, and he was very transparent about it. That is reaching up a little bit higher than his pay grade there. So that's going to Nico Harrison. That's going to ownership here. I mean, the Dallas Mavericks they've got to do a better job of getting things figured out. I know that they just basically can't wait to get the season over with, but there still is a month of season left to play, maybe even more for them. Gotta help Coach Kidd out here a little bit. Make sure they have active players to be able to play. That's a GM thing. That's a management thing. Poor Jason Kidd there. All right. I don't know if you caught this in college baseball over the weekend. 2 announcers were sort of caught off guard. Very, very funny moment in a college baseball game. It was the selfie of the weekend. And, basically, if you've seen this before, the cameras will roll around when games get a little dull or they get a little boring, and they'll go to fans. And the cameras did find 2 women behind home plate who were taking selfies. But you just don't know what to expect when you put the cameras on people. And so naturally nothing crazy ended up happening here. But what did happen is they said, well, it's selfie time. And then you could see, them lift their phone up to take pictures of themselves. And then one of the women ended up taking the phone and dropping it a little bit lower, to which they really had no answer for that, meaning that let's just call it what it is, a butt selfie. All right. She took a butt selfie. We can say that. We can stream that here on NewsWire. I don't know if you can really see the picture there, but that's what ended up happening. And it was caught on camera. I guess this is their 15 minutes of viral moment fame. Fair to say. We'll find out, more about these. But you never know. Like you never know when you're going to get famous out there. We saw that in a big way last year, I think. A lot of different viral moments, which I'm not going to bring up here on the show. But needless to say, you never know if you're going to be on camera. Watch what you're doing. Unless you want to be viral, which in this case, maybe these girls or women did. All right, that'll do it for the show. Coming up next year at SportsGrid, we got Smiley recapping the Arnold Palmer Invitational. That's at noon Eastern, so stay on the grid for that. Followed by Scott Farrell, Coast to Coast. Folks, there's a ton of NBA games tonight for a Monday night. Generally, you see like 3, 4, 5. There's like 10 games or 15 games tonight in the NBA. So Farrell will preview those as well as the latest in the trade deadline in hockey, some big trades and some games tonight as well. Game time decisions following at 6. That's followed by in-game live game day and sports rage tonight with Gabe. Also want to thank all of our guests here on the program, including Coach Young and Pat Evans and Vinnie Iyer and Adam Caplan. For our director Luke, my producer Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Have a great rest of your Monday. See you tomorrow.